What's going on YouTube? It's your host, Bruce GNT. And for today's video, we're going to talk about the $500 million that Biden pretty much gave to Ukraine. The last bit that Congress had pretty much approved for him to give. And we're going to pretty much talk about what that looks like and what's going on over there. And if you were pretty much watching or seeing my other video, I talked about proxy wars and how I feel about them. I don't think the US should be involved in proxy wars. I do not approve of what's going on in any war. I do not approve what's going on in Ukraine. I do not approve what's going on in Israel. I do not approve what may potentially go on in Taiwan if China was to get, a little itchy and decide to do what they want to do. Yeah, I think it's all horrific, and I think it's something that we should not condone. But at the same time, I don't think it's something that America should be involved in, especially when it comes to giving money. Especially in the circumstance of when Putin pretty much said, "Hey, look, if America was to let Ukraine specifically use these long-range missiles and fire it off into their country, it's going to cause World War III.
Over at the White House, they will discuss allowing Ukraine potentially to use long-range weapons provided by the U.S. and other Western NATO allies deep into Russian territory. President Biden has been facing increasing bipartisan pressure to try to loosen the restrictions and is signaling a new openness. The Russian President, Vladimir Putin, is delivering a rather chilling warning just ahead of today's meeting.
This is their direct involvement. And this, of course, would, in a significant way, change the very essence, the very nature of the conflict. It will mean that NATO countries, the United States and European countries, are at war with Russia.
That happened like late last year. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over exactly what that 500 million was, because it wasn't exactly a lump sum of money. It was just a 500 million equivalent of weaponry. So we're just gonna go over that. The Biden administration announces additional security assistance for Ukraine. Today, the DoD announced additional security assistance support to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs as part of the surge of security assistance the president directed to put Ukraine in the best possible position. This includes the approval of a presidential drawdown authority package, which has an estimated value of $500 million to provide Ukraine additional capabilities to meet its most urgent needs, including missiles for air defense, air-to-ground munitions, and equipment to support Ukraine's use of F-16s. The capabilities in this announcement include, I'm not reading all of that, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna leave it right here so you guys can read it. This is the Biden administration's 74th tranche. Can't pronounce that. I promise I'm not illiterate. Of equipment to be provided from DoD inventories for Ukraine since August 2021. The United States continues to work together with some 50 allies and partners that Security Austin will convene tomorrow as part of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group and its associated capability coalitions to provide the support Ukraine needs to prevail in its fight against Russian aggression. Yeah, so essentially that's pretty much what it is. It looks like it's not much, but all this is pretty much state of the art, like pretty high-tech, advanced stuff, especially when it comes to air defense. Yeah, I know some of these. I might even have pictures on the screen so you could get like a good idea of what it is exactly. And we have a video right here that I'm gonna click into real quick.
With less than 2 weeks left in office, the Biden administration is announcing its final shipment of weapons for Ukraine. The administration believes nearly all of this $500 million worth of weapons will arrive before the inauguration of Donald Trump, whose Ukraine envoy today said they will aim to negotiate an end to the war within Trump's first 100 days in office. Nick Schifrin is following all of this and joins us now. So Nick, tell us more about what exactly the Biden administration is sending in this latest round of aid.
The Biden administration announced today, or is announcing, its 56 weapons package for Ukraine, worth about $500 million, as you said. And among these weapons are some of the longer-range weapons that Ukraine has used inside Russia. You see right there, to hit key Russian infrastructure, as well as artillery shells. Now, administration officials say this is the final money that Congress has appropriated for Ukraine for drawn-down U.S. stocks that can be replenished to the U.S. military. And frankly, as you know, Ukraine needs all the help it can get. Just today in Zaporizhia, Russian missiles hit an apartment complex, an industrial facility, and the debris hit a tram and a train, killing more than 13 and wounding more than 60.
I mean, Nick, as you've been reporting, this war now grinds on into another year. What exactly is the state of play on the front lines?
Administration officials who see this as a glass half full believe that Ukraine is holding the line and that Russia is making small gains, but at great cost, more than 1,500 casualties every single day on the Russian side. But analysts we talk to say or see a Ukraine that is barely holding on and that really faces fundamental problems for which there are no easy answers. So let's look at the front, specifically in the east, in the Donbass. Russia has made recent gains around the city of Pokrovsk. You see that there. And analysts have feared Pokrovsk's fall for months and that it could have a knock-on effect across the Donbass. So far, Ukraine's lines are holding, but Ukraine does not have answers to fundamental questions that really surround a shortage of manpower, says retired Colonel Robert Hamilton of the Foreign Policy Research Institute.
They are losing ground hundreds of meters to several square kilometers or more a day. That's been going on for about a year. And the main reason is they're just outmanned on the front lines. The second part of it is the training. It's not long enough and it's not intense enough. And then the third problem is what we would call force employment, like how they're using these newly mobilized soldiers. What they're doing is they're forming new brigades. They're forming brand new units. They're giving them new equipment, and then they're sending them into the front line.
And that means these newly mobilized brigades just aren't as effective, Amna, as they need to be. Another part of the front that we should highlight is inside of Russia, and that is Kursk. Ukraine invaded the territory in August. It's been losing some of what it captured, but just this week beefed up its operations with the hope that it can hold on at least to part of Kursk in order to have it as a chip in future negotiations.
So what about those negotiations? We know President-elect Trump has promised to accelerate those. What does the future of the U.S. policy in Ukraine look like?
As you said at the top, President-elect Trump's Ukraine envoy, retired General Keith Kellogg, said today that his goal was, quote, a solid, sustainable solution to the war in Ukraine within 100 days of inauguration. Kellogg himself has called for Ukraine to receive some kind of security guarantees in the future in order to prevent Ukraine from being invaded again.
And we'll hold them to that. Because my thing is, I'm a person, if you say you're going to do something, then you got to do it. And I'm not going to be the type of person that's going to be like, okay, cool, you said 100, it's 101, 102, you didn't do it. But this is one of the things that I'm actually looking forward to, because one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel was to hold the president's feet to the fire, because I think it's important for us as citizens that we have to hold you accountable. You know, at the very least, we do. You know, we're all living here in this country. You know, you got voted in. We have to hold you accountable. We have to say, hey, look, you're here right now. You talked all this big game. Now you gotta get to work. You gotta get to work. I'm interested to see like how they're exactly gonna have this negotiation, because is it gonna be a situation where they're gonna have Russia and Ukraine retreat and make it so that, okay, hey, look, the borders that both these countries had, they're gonna just come back to, and they're just gonna make it so that Ukraine just have beefed up security. Who's gonna provide the security? Is it gonna be a united front with the European countries in America? You know, so I'm interested to see how that's gonna work, and I'm definitely gonna be covering that when it comes to, you know, them working that out and then those type of negotiations. I'm very interested to see how that works. Very interested. Yeah, definitely gonna be covering that. Definitely gonna be covering that, because like I said, we're gonna be holding his feet to the fire. He says he's gonna do certain things, so we're gonna make sure that happens.
By Russia after whatever negotiation takes place. But yesterday, Trump suggested that he would reverse decades of U.S. policy that called for an open door to European countries to join NATO so long as they met NATO criteria, when Trump suggested he would not let Ukraine join NATO, echoing the Russian argument for why Ukraine should not join.
Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that.
Bottom line is the Trump team will have a choice. If it wants Ukraine to have the most leverage at the negotiating table, it will have to increase weapons to Ukraine, as well as, most importantly, lift restrictions of how deep U.S. weapons can be fired into Ukraine, says Robert Hamilton.
It's not sufficient to change the outcome of the war, but I think it's necessary. Unless Ukraine is allowed to do that, I think we're in a position where their position will continue to erode.
And that is what Ukraine is worried about, Amna, fighting this war of attrition with less U.S. support than it has now.
Yeah, that's interesting because just like we said, if they don't have the backing of NATO, then it's not going to stop Russia or any other country from pretty much saying, "Hey, look, they look kind of weak over there." I mean, who's going to stop us? I can see how that could work out, but there's more ways it can go wrong than it could go right. And who knows, maybe I'm ignorant. I'm never going to claim to be like the most knowledgeable, especially when it comes to stuff with foreign policy. Definitely something I got to read up more about. Look, I'm 26. I don't know everything, but definitely something I'm going to look more into. And when I have a little bit more information about it, you'll be some of the first people I'll tell. But yeah, definitely something I'll have to keep informed of. But that's it for this video. If you found this informative, leave a like. If you want to discuss and tell me how you feel, what you think, or maybe you have more information than I have, leave a little comment. Subscribe if you want to see more. But yeah, peace.